As Roz mentioned, I'm today try to walk through with you the best practices for the implementation lifecycle management for Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain management projects. And before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm Ahmet Yildirim from Istanbul, Turkey. I'm working as a senior premier field engineer at Microsoft for nearly 5 years. And before joining Microsoft, I was working as a technical guy in the markets, and I have participated in many projects. And today's agenda that I created is what I'm aiming with this today's session is my main aim for the attendee profile is who are beginning their first project on the Dynamics 365, who are in the middle of their first project and who are struggling with the understand what are the peers, what are the parties that are participating to the project, and what should be the best practices for the environment, the developments, and so many other things. Because now we are definitely having a different world from the if you are moving from the AX 2012 project world. So I try to introduce the difference and the pinpoint the major changes and what you need to know. And I try to create an content in a question and answer manner. So you will see questions in the slides and the answers that I provide. So let's jump into the first part, which I try to explain you the actors when you are doing your first project with the Dynamics 365. You know the partner, you will have the customer, but what about the Microsoft side? So you have now you recently heard or you already engaged with them. We have a fast track team. So the fast track team is one of the major actors when you are doing your projects. But what is fast track for Dynamics 365? So Microsoft Fast Track is a customer success service, and that is designed to help you move smoothly and confidently to the Dynamics 365 so that you can realize the business value faster. And when you participate in Fast Track program, you receive guidance about the implementation best practices and planning for successful rollouts and expanding capabilities. But of course, however, you are implementing your project your own pace, so there's no rush. And finally, you also have access to Microsoft engineering resources who are committed to making your experience a success. So you may ask that, am I eligible for Fast Track team? To get started with Fast Track, your project must meet the minimum license requirement, which is currently there are 20 seat minimum for Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain management project or equivalents. And after your implementation project's workspaces provisions in the lifecycle services, the Fast Track team will contact you and a project team to onboard the project and provide information about the program. So from your side, no action is required on your part. You just have to make sure that the user information in LCS, in the lifecycle services, is up to date, and the email addresses in the setup are monitored because you will receive the invitations and so on. Another question, which services does Fast Track team deliver? So during the Fast Track engagements, the Fast Track engineering team will offer customer opportunities to get practical guidance on cloud deployments and help with the usage and the adoption with the new cloud world and assistance in removing blockers during the implementation. And they are using these three main activities. The first one is the technical talks, and AKA Tech Talks, focus on providing technical depths and best practices that empower both customer and the partner with more knowledge specific to the subject areas. So these talks often provide an overview of available tooling or content. And there are also gets in the field. There could be also a remote version of the workshops. They are interactive and outcome-based activities and might involve automation and tooling. Also, customers and partners can provide input prior to the workshops and customize them for their engagement. For example, there could be some performance issues related to some finance module or some other areas specific. Then this content can be customized upon the request. And finally, they have regular touch points, which they're actually the main activity. They're typically 30-minute calls that they continue throughout the duration of the engagements. And small technical proof points are sometimes provided to help remove customer roadblocks. So by the help of these regular touch points, the customer and the partner can be ensure that they are on the right track and they can run on smoothly their projects. All sessions are delivered remotely, but as I mentioned, exceptionally, they can be on field for the workshops. And also they have time zone based resources to cover major markets like our time zone, EMEA, America, and the APAC. So this is the overall information about the fast track team. And beside that, the fast track team, we also have the PFE team, the Premier Field Engineers, the MCS team, Microsoft Consulting Services. So, and I will, in the very next slide, I will try to show in the life cycle, implementation life cycle, where they begin and where they end when they are handover. But before that, I want to highlight some specific activities of these parties, these organizations in Microsoft. So you can, the most probably will face within your projects. The PFEs are trying to provide guidance and assistance during entire life cycle of their project. So we are always with the customer before the project and after the project, during the project. We are trying to give side-by-side delivery model support. We are focused on knowledge transfer, and we are working proactive, not muchly active. And we are trying to give our support with the managed IPs, like the code reviews, performance reviews, and so on. And also, like the partners, Microsoft has Microsoft Consulting Services, and they are agreed and delivered against the statement of works, and they are doing the implementation projects as well. And they are also handover after the project to the EAS team, Enhanced Application Support team, after they finish the implementation project. So how is the project timeline for partner-driven projects? So if the partner doing the project, as you see, partners coming from the planning to the after the go live, it's always with the customer. Fast track team, as you see it here, they are on will be till to the go live, and after go live they are disengaging. And on after that, mostly in the projects, the PFE team hand over the project if from the Microsoft side to continue to engage with the customer. And what about MCS-driven projects? In the MCS project-driven, the MCS and the fast track teams are disengaging after going live, and there could be EAS, Enhanced Application Support, or the PFE team will be there to hand over and continue to support customers for their cases. So I try to explain the parties, the actors, which you can meet, which you can face in the implementation projects. So now I'm passing to the environments, which is so important for the project, especially if in your new project. You can struggle with how many environments do I need, or how many environments will I have, my customer will have, or as a partner I will have when the project starts. So the first question is how many sandbox environments do I need within an LCS customer implementation projects. So as you see, a customer subscription comes with 3 environments by default. One of them is the dev test environment. The second one is the tier 2. I will come to the tier part in my next slides. Tier 2 sandbox environment, which can be used for the UAT. And finally, of course, a production environment. One sandbox can be used as a pre-production UAT environment, and the other sandboxes can be used for configuration, upgrades, or for other scenarios. So also, if this tray environment is not enough, you can purchase additional tier 2 or higher sandboxes. You can use the tier 2 sandbox environment as a configuration and the UAT environment before the application goes live in production. And after configuring the sandbox with the code and data that you need to go live, the AKA, as you will also hear that it's called as the golden configuration or environment, golden config environments. You can run your validation on the same environment. And when your validation passes, all done, you can restore your sandbox database to the point in the time of its gold configuration. So after that, you can deploy your code to production and copy the sandbox database to your production environment. You can also choose to have more than one sandbox environment that is tier 2 or higher, especially after your application is live. So another question, when I configure and request my production environment. So in the beginning, you will have 2 environments. You won't, in the very beginning of the first day, you won't hand over the production environment. Typically, a production environment is deployed after all customizations are code complete, user acceptance testing is completed, the customer has signed off the solution, and then there are no blocking issues. Okay, then you can ready to go live. So the fast track team at this point, when you are at this stage, the fast track team will work with the project team to do a go live assessment review. So that's something very important in order to you can go to the live. The go live assessment review is the part of the Microsoft Fast Track program. During the review, solution architect assesses whether an implementation project is ready for a cutover, the successful cutover and go live. And this review is mandatory for every implementation project before you can request to go live in a production environment. So this is one of the major milestones in your project. And as you see here, the go live assessment workshop designed to help guarantee a successful go live of the projects. And here are some topics you can find in the workshop. It's very detailed and cover up nearly all areas, all implementation lifecycle areas. Another question, I want to request my production environment. Who do I contact for a go live assessment review? So if a fast track solution is assigned to your project, in not all projects, as we said that from the eligibility perspective, in some of the project, the fast track solution architects are not assigned. If it's assigned, contact with him and him or her directly. Otherwise, based on the go live date, that's something, that's info you can find in lifecycle services. You will receive an email that instructs you to fill out the pre-go live checklist and send it to the email address that you see here, and a few weeks before the go live dates. If you haven't received an email, you're ready to go live, and you are ready to go live, you can download the checklist from the Dynamics 365 community on the Go Live Planning Tech Talk page and complete it, and again send it the same mail address. And here is a view of this mail that you will receive when you are ready to go live. Another question, how will my production environment be sized? Sized based on the current license count and the information in the subscription estimate. So the subscription estimate is so important. your production environment will be sized based on the current user license count and the information in the subscription estimate that is active when you request the production environment. And if you add additional user later, you must create a support ticket to activate a new subscription estimate. Your production environment might have to be resized depending on the number of users, this type of user licenses, and the expected peak transaction volume. Downtime may required in order to resize the production environment. So please heads up for that. In the engagements with the customers that we see when there's a performance issue occurred, we see, the first thing we check is the subscription estimates, if it's accurate or not, if it's up to date or not, because this can be easily omitted. And maybe in the beginning of the project, you have a subscription estimation, but it's not reflects your current situation. Or also, if you have seasonal changes, you also should mention about it, especially if you are doing a retail business, or if you have a really up and downs in this, seasonally, you should mention about them, because upon this request, upon this estimation on the background, your environment is sized. How often my production database backed up? Databases are protected by automatic backups. Full database backups are done weekly, and differential database backups are done hourly, and transactional log backups are done every 5 minutes. So automatic backups are retained for 35 days. Now, when you are creating a service request in the lifecycle services, now it's a self-service request you can use to refresh the production database to your UAT environments or the other environments. You are using these automated backups. So this is another thing that I want to mention. Another question is, can I request a copy of backup of my production database? No. However, you can submit a database refresh service request to copy your production database to your tier 2 and higher sandbox environments. After the copy request is completed, you can back up your sandbox environment. So we talk about the environments. We said a lot of tier 2 and plus. Basically, tier 1 environment is your dev boxes, all in one installation. So all what you need to run an environment is installed in a one box. But tier 2 and the higher environments have multi-machine, multi-server deployments. So they are more closer architecture to your production environment. And as you see here, I put an environments overview in two boxes. In the left side, you see the Microsoft managed and operated. On the right-hand side, you see the customer and partner managed. The local on the customer and partner manage, you can use the VHD machines, the demonstrate. On the left side, you have the 3 machines that you have handover when you begin the project, and you can have the add-ons as you see here: demo, development, tests, UAT, performance testing, and golden configuration environments. We will talk about the golden configuration environment. I just want to highlight that the performance testing is important. What I see mostly in the project as well, customers trying to do performance testing, but they are using tier 2 environments, not the tier 4 or tier 5 environments. Tier 2 environments have limited resources, and not a from the resource perspective, it's not a close machine to your production. So when you can try some performance testing in tier 2 environment, you can easily hit the roof, and you can throttle by the DTU easily. So instead, if you have, of course, it depends on your the business processes, transaction count, user count. Try to use a similar machine to your production environment or your needs. The closest machines to the tier 5, tier 4 environments are better for the performance testing. So from environments, I want to jump to the development parts. I try to answer some mostly wondered questions around developments. The first question is, should I develop on premise or in the cloud? There are two modes of developments. One of them is the cloud VMs, and the other one is the on-prem VMs, which is available via downloadable VHD. And the best practice is use a combination on-prem and the cloud VMs for development. Mostly prefer for the cloud VMs. The on-premise dev VMs are cost-effective if you are already have the hardware, IT infrastructure, of course. And using the cloud VMs to scale out when project require additional resources for a limited period of time, it's better. But connect all VMs on-prem and the cloud VMs to Azure DevOps for version control. This is a rule of thumb. And use cloud VMs for build, functional testing, and demos. If you are running on your own Microsoft Azure subscription, turn them off when not in use for the cost reduction. So another diagram to highlight this three option. On the left side, you see this is the add-on. When you're purchasing, if it says add-on environment, okay, thank you, Ras. We have three options about these development environments. On the left side, we have the add-on in the subscription. When you are having an add-on, you are purchasing add-on, you are actually purchasing this environment under the implementation project license. We have also cloud hosted environments, which is customers' Azure subscription, not in the implementation subscription, in other subscription. But under the same tenants, the main difference is as you see in the table, the cost-based usage is different between these machines in the option 1 and the option 3. And in the option 1, because of the security, you won't have in the dev boxes the admin access. So this can be tricky when you are doing the development. So for development purposes, using the option 3 is a better option. To option 2, there are some downside, as you see here. In order to deploy package from lifecycle services, you have to do manually. You have to download the runbooks and you have to apply them manually. Integration development, the Azure DevOps configuration needs extra setup steps. But in the option 1 and option 3, they are already there. And so also when you are downloading a VHD, you are having an hardware cost additionally. So one final thing, deploying data packages. Data packages is also so important about the Dynamics 365 projects. We will get that part as well. And it's not supported for the VHD environments, so deploying data packages. But in the add-on environments and the cloud-hosted environments, data packages are supported. So another question, should I use customers' development environments? If you're a partner, use your own virtual machines for development of your own intellectual property, IP. And this is the code and configuration data packages that are reusable across different customer implementations. For customer specific implementation, you can use the customer's development VMs. All customer subscriptions come with at least one development VM, and customers can pay for add-on dev VMs or run local dev VMs or have the cloud-hosted environments. Can more than one developer develop concurrently on the same VM? Unfortunately, this is not supported. However, you can provision more than one developer account on the same VM, and they just cannot develop concurrently. But heads up, this is the important part. If you are a Microsoft partner developing code for more than one customer, Then we're recommending having at least one development VM per customer. You will need one additional VM for every additional developer working on a customer project. Development virtual machines can be thought of as disposable assets. This is important. I want to emphasize that disposable assets, as long as your source code is checked into version control, Azure DevOps, and you keep a backup of test databases. Disposable assets, because you can easily, when you are doing your first project, you can easily have an issue with your dev bugs. And I've seen that the developers can lose the precious time to fix their development boxes. Instead of that, if you have bootstraps, if you can easily install what you need onto the computer from the development tool perspective, you can easily spin off a new machine, and you can easily use that machine easily to continue your development. So by the creating a new VM, creating a new dev box. Sorry, could you take yourself move? Okay, thank you. So the disposable assets, the VMs, easily can be broken. As I said, instead of fixing it, trying to redeploy these development VMs, so you can save this precious time for the development. You are already having the backup of your code, and if you're already having the backup, the test databases, so you're actually ready to go for the development. Another questions are frequently asked: how can I be more agile in my developments? So we are coming from a waterfall approach from AX 2012 or the earlier versions of, but now we can deliver incremental features every sprint, 2 weeks preferred, or cycle in 1 month. We need this definitely, because now we are working in Azure DevOps environments, and we have branches, and we are merging our customizations, and how frequently we increment delivering is affecting our ALM, application lifecycle management process. So I can deep dive for this session, but maybe in another session we can talk about more about the ALM. But when you are merging branches, when you are the change sets are merged between the branches. If you are cherry picking these, if you start to cherry picking these change sets, then you can be in trouble. You can easily forget, or you can easily miss an important artifact on the one of the branches. So your build operation, your compilation can be failed. So because of that, in order to be safe, also delivering frequently will makes you have less change sets that to be wait for the merge. And from the another perspective, of course, you can get much more feedback if you are delivering more frequently. The another thing is use the Azure DevOps for work item tracking, and always prioritize bugs over new features. This is very important. What I see, a large bug backlog on the partners or in the customers' in-house resources will quickly become a burden on your efficient delivery of new features and on the quality of your application. So just not use for the version control, try to use for the application lifecycle management as a whole, and use for the work item tracking. And you can also find the sure step how to use the Azure DevOps. You can use the status, the work item types for how you can use for the Azure DevOps. Another question is, how do I distribute my application to customers? If you are a partner or if you are an ISV, there are two artifacts you can use to distribute your application to your customers or partners. It can be either model files or deployable packages. Model files are design time artifacts that contain source code, and use model files if your customer is integrating your application with other third-party models, or when you want to allow customization of your models. So model files are the most common method for ISVs to distribute solutions. Deployable packages are final applications. Use deployable packages with customers that will not be customizing or integrating your application with other third-party models. So they won't have the source code, they will only have the application. If you use the deployable packages, your customer can only use or extend your application. They will not see or have access to your source codes. What are the best practices for the code management? We already mentioned set up DevOps, Azure DevOps, formerly known as Visual Studio Team Services for source control. Use build environment to build your deployable packages. This is something I also want to highlight, emphasize a lot, because when you are creating deployable packages in the Visual Studio, when you are not using the build environment for creating this, then you can be in trouble. When you are deploying your packages to the production environments, it's really hard to differentiate if there is an error, if there's a missing DLL, or if there's something not following the best practices for the deployable packages in the production deployment. So the DSC who is deploying your environment, who's deploying your packages to your production environments, can lose this precious time while troubleshooting what's wrong with this package, and then can say that, yeah, I can't deploy this package, there's something wrong, please fix it, and again send it back. So in many cases we see that the reason behind it is coming that the package not built in build environment. We will come to the more details in the build part, but please heads up for that. Minimize the number of deployable code packages. So that you are already seeing in the lifecycle services, all in one package will be a mandatory thing in the near future. So please be aware of that. Understand code promotion from build to UAT and production. So you build the package, test for the UAT, and then also test for the production. On production, code deployment is scheduled service request with a lead time. So we still have this 5 hours lead time before you deploy the production. So you have to plan accordingly, and you have to manage the customer expectations with the SLAs that Microsoft gives. Dev, UAT, and production must be on same platform and application versions, which I see also it can easily be omitted, especially the dev environments or UAT environments can not align with the version for the production environment. That's something causing issues because there's something tested in the UAT, but it's not working because of that, the version mismatch in the production. And also finalize your release candidates, code stability, pre-go live. So do I need build environments? Yes, you should take advantage of the build and test automation tools provided in the build environments. That's so important. You can, so how you can deploy your build environments? You can deploy it from the lifecycle services. You don't have to go from the Azure and do this. You can also deploy, when you are deploying your dev test environment, you can deploy your build environment as well. And when you are deploying your build environments, the build definition and this build definition also will be available. The build pipeline in the Azure DevOps will be automatically deployed with your build machine. And creating daily builds and daily regression tests are key tools to enable the continuous delivery and maintain the quality of your application. I come to that regression test parts in the test slides, but the continuous integration and continuous delivery, it's so much important thing for our new Dynamics 365 development life, and try to get used to the daily builds and the daily regression tests. you can, by the help of new tools like the RSAT regression suite automation tool, you can inject your tests into your build process. It can be either your unit test or it can be the regression tests. So we will come to that part. Another two things do I need? Do not use build environments for development activities. Actually, not remote desktop to build environments. You can do everything that you need from the Azure DevOps to your Dev VMs. In the near future, that's also available option. You can now have build machines as PaaS machines, platform as a service. So they in the near future it will be totally gone, and you won't have any VMs that you can remote desktop as a build machines. Build machines will be all pure PaaS machines you will use as a service. So the reason is that, as I said, when you log in there, you can easily change something, and this can cause the package that created fail. And do not keep a backup of your test-based databases on the build VMs. Instead, you can keep it also in the environments. The build VMs are designed to reset themselves to known state with every build, and whenever they are updated with Microsoft binary or platform updates from LCS. For example, if you apply a binary hotfix or platform update to a build VM, the VM prepares itself for the next build as a part of the update. So this will remove your customizations and also trigger a database synchronization. Another topic, configuration and data management. It's also another hot topic. In the environments part, we said that what is the golden configuration environment? What is golden configuration environment? Single environment for controlling all configuration related information. Base environment to set up other tools for initial solution validation, and template environment to spawn other environment, thereby reducing changes of any configuration changes or data corruption, which could directly impact testing or any other related activity. So you can use the data packages to export and import Dynamics 365 finance, supply chain management data. Data packages are so important. What is data packages, if you are asking? It consists of data entities, but it also has a manifest file. So you can define that when you are importing or exporting, import this data entity first, and then the second, and then the third. So this kind of definitions can be done in the data packages. So you can keep for example, a module data in a data package, and you can move it back and forth between your environments with the help of data packages. It's so useful, handy tools, and you can optimize the performance for large imports by the help of data packages as well. So maybe there be another question. We should use what kind of what tier machine we should use for the golden configuration database. So if you are using tier 1 add-on, it's a cost effective, of course, but more work for you to copy the database to tier 2 plus, because the tier 1 machines using SQL, not Azure SQL, so their backup files will be as the file extension back, not the backpack. On contrary, the tier 2 add-on machines, higher cost machines, but supports direct refresh to production, because the production database is also Azure SQL tier 2, and higher machines has the Azure SQL database as well. So for the database refresh, copy your golden config data from any tier 2 environment to production. If the database on a tier 2 environment already, you can do it by self-service, service request. And if database is on a tier 1 environment, first back to tier 2, then service request for the database refresh. Use data packages. Do not manually configure production from scratch. Don't spend lose your valuable time for that. You are sparing for the project implementation. So what are the best practices in managing configurations and data migration? Always have a configuration management and the data migration plan updated Always baseline the configuration whenever it's to be deployed in production. Always ensure you have a golden config environment in your plan and use it to seed other environments. The migrated data must always be verified by the customer, tested, and accepted, sign off as a part of system acceptance. Do not forget to sequencing of data load. This is the one activity that can bring in a lot of rework if not managed carefully. So how do I manage test data? Create and manage your test data as follows. Start on a clean environment. Create all base data required. Base data will be serve as starting point for all the tests. Take a backup of your XDB database and share the backup with developers. On build the environments, copy the backup over the iDrive normally. Dynamics backup database folder. On some environments may be a different than I folder. This database will be restored at the beginning of every build, and this step is executed as part of the first step of the build definition called prepare for builds, as here. So please bear in mind, and it's very, very important for your test data automatically restored. And a very important slide about the test automation. So we the incoming one version changes. Now we have 8 major 8 changes, 8 updates yearly, 2 of them major, and Microsoft now our Dynamics 365 Live is a like a river. It's flowing, and in order to be up and running on this flow in this river, we have to create our test automation for the regression testing and for all other testing capabilities. So you see the test parameter is a simple visualization of suites makeup using different granularities. Do an image web search for test parameter, and you will get lots of examples of them. This is we are using for Dynamics 365. And the test suites base needs to be large volume of unit and component tests. This is important because these tests are better across the board with respect to the test qualities. The pyramid also indicates that having some broader integration or business cycle test is important. Even though these tests are more costly, they are very good for building confidence in the product. The next question you might have maybe about the ideal ratio between different tiers of tests. That's a good question, and the answer depends on the context of your product. But starting point that I use in order of magnitude difference between each tier. For example, having 1,000 unit tests, 100 component tests, 10 integration tests, and 1 business cycle test would be reasonable. While this all looks good in theory, my experience with the last 2 major release of AX, with the AX 2012 and AX 2009, provides great evidence that the approach works. For AX 2012, our pyramids looked more like an hourglass instead of pyramids. We had a lot of unit tests and almost equal number of integration tests. The integration tests mostly worked through the user interface, and the tests were relatively slow, unreliable, and very costly from a maintenance standpoint. Their feedback value was significantly diminished because the failure rates for non-product reasons was high. So I jump to the integration-related best practices and the recommendations. So first thing first, try to reduce the number of integrations. Simplify the overall architecture and try to reduce the number of integrations between applications wherever possible. Clearly define the master system for each data element, even though you may have it stored at multiple places. In some cases, this may have to be defined at the field level. For example, a customer master stored in CRM and finance and operations as well. CRM might be the master for all the customer information except credit limits. So ideally, you should avoid duplication of data across multiple systems, although in some cases you cannot avoid it for business reasons or for systems to work. And another example, customer records are required in both the CRM system and operations. However, you can opt not to integrate the CRM-centric customer information that may not be needed in operations. Understand and document business SLAs for each integration. Think through the impact in extreme situations. One of my customers had the inventory getting refreshed into their e-commerce system every 2 minutes. It was okay until the Black Friday weekend. And finally, data entities. I left it to the last, but it's the most important cornerstone, most important actor in the integration area. So in this diagram, you can see that on Azure SQL database, on top of that, we see the data entities. Now we have out of box 1,700 plus entities. And while you are architecting your integrations, when you are upgrading from AX 2012, first try to ask if you can use the data entities instead of custom web services. Because the data entities has many capabilities, they are all the database actionable. You can have all data actions, and you can do more than just import and export with the data entities. For asynchronous and the synchronous databases, you can use the data entities, and on top of them, on the right side, you may have the data management framework, or now addition to the SOAP, now we have the REST JSON-based services as well. So please bear in mind that when you are beginning to the integration debates, integration discussions, try to understand first the data entity and how to use it. I put this slide. There's an integration patterns and practices page in Docs, which is very clearly explaining the scenarios for the integration. You can find it here. You can, in order to choose a data integration strategy, there are many scenarios that cover here. Typical scenarios and patterns for the OData integrations, for the custom services, typical scenarios and patterns that call external web service. This doc site is so good. You can see dual write versus classic data integration patterns, synchronous and asynchronous integration patterns, in which case, which can be chosen, and there are also typical scenarios, patterns that use OData integrations and so on. So make sure that all integrations that are using supported endpoints and described in the services homepage, configure and test your integration in sandbox standard acceptance test environments. Validate with real life data volumes and frequency of recurrence. As I said, this in the performance targets, if you are not testing in a closed environments, then you may have a problem. If you have a complex environment, if you have a lot of transactions and a lot of users, then you may test it in the more than higher, the tier 2 environments. Finally, these fast track tech talks, I'll put these links there. It's super beneficial from giving you the how you can build your integration architecture for Dynamics 365. So performance and support. In time to time, I talk about the performance side time to time in these slides, but one of the important things here, why should I worry about the performance? Isn't that Microsoft responsibility? So performance is a combined effort, since performance can be affected by variables outside of Microsoft influence, and including but not limited to your customizations, ISV code, system configuration, timing of batch jobs, and integration. So you need to be careful about it. The IP, the codes you wrote, your partner wrote, belongs to them. So Microsoft can show that, yeah, there can be problem with the indexing or the coding, but can't remediate that issue on behalf of your partner or customer. So still there are some points you have to be careful in order to have the right performance. Where and how much performance testing do I need? Environment can range, as we said. Try to use the premium performance test, which is tier 5, or the tier 4 environment. Test with realistic user load and data volumes. Take traces, use the trace parser. If you don't know how to use it, learn how to use it. Test all your integrations on tier 2 or higher. Select the right data center. Test your network latency with the azurespeed.com. And also I put another tech talk for the performance testing approach. So steps for the good performance: define a usage profile, test all important process with realistic amount of test of data, run a multi-user test on a realistic amount of test data, do real user testing exercise as conference room pilots and UATs, and monitor through the first weeks in production. Finally, how we can move the user and security setup between the environments. First test with the right roles and know how to move security between environments. Again, data entities. You can use the predefined data entities for the security in order to move among the environments your security artifacts. So don't try to use another way. The data entities are really cool, and you can use for the data migration among the environments. Finally, the importance of using generic service account for the admin user. After first log on after initial deployment to any environment. In that case, the admin is the only user that can access environments. And first log on to sandbox environment after a DB refresh from production. In that case, all user accounts except for admin accounts are disabled. So thank you for listening to me. And here you can find my also the beautiful Istanbul, and also my connection information, my LinkedIn account and Twitter account. Let me check if time left. If there's any questions, let me check for the questions. So.
Thank you again, once again, Ahmet, for that. Yes, there is a question by Naveen asking the question, after refreshing from UAT from production, only the environment administrator can log in to enable all the users. Do we have any option where other users can have the admin role to log in? So that means they've actually did a copy of, they've taken a copy of production to UAT, but they're having problems with logging in with the admin role.
Do we have an option where other user having admin role can log? As far as I know, no. The answer is no.
Yeah. Dr. Ludwig's asking, do tier 2 environments still have RDP access, or is this completely gone now?
So lifecycle services now announced it before the UAT environments. In a new feature, it will be totally locked down for the RDP access, and they just need either announced or in a new feature they will announce. I know that it's before there will be a RDP lockdown in the UAT environments, tier 2+ environments. But I'm not 100% sure that if they totally lock down. I know that the admin access is restricted, but please be your plans that the UAT environments there will be a RDP lockdown very near future, or already done.
Okay, yeah. So those are the questions. I think a lot of people asking for the information. Related to the information. So we will obviously be sharing that information later on, so that's fine. So a lot of people are very interested in getting access to this information, Ahmed. Are there any other sites that you think people should go on to keep up to date with this information?
Sorry?
So people, they're interested in your presentation.
Yes.
to get access to your presentation. And I think now's a good time to mention if there's any other places people
Yeah.
should follow. Obviously, it's community.dynamics, which is obviously the official Microsoft Dynamics community. But if there's anything else, please feel free to share, Ahmet, as to any other sources that people can use.
Yes. The presentations will be available, right, Russ, after these
Yes, correct.
sessions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Here's a question. So it's can I ask Microsoft to increase my database size for dev environment to be the same set to production? Is there any additional cost for that?
No. No, it's actually the environmental information not shared with the customers, and upon the usage, the main thing is the subscription estimator for your production environments. The upon the subscription estimation, on the background, the environments are changed. About the dev environments, they are not Azure SQL environments, so they are not change. There are SQL instances, non-Azure SQL environments. So dev boxes are not getting bigger or changed. The levels change, but the Azure SQL levels are changed from P5 to P12 or etc.
Okay, here's a question by Vermani. He's saying, hi, Ahmet. Currently, we are deploying packages through LCS manually, but do we need to automate through Azure pipelines? Azure host agents would be available in 2020 that would remove the need for a build server. So they're asking about the use of Azure pipelines. I know you mentioned it in your session. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, for the establishing the continuous integration and the continuous deployment, now everything is ready for your tool set. So you can use from the Azure DevOps Marketplace. There are two tasks. One of them is if you set it up, then you can automatically upload the package to the lifecycle services, and then you can deploy it to your environment. These are also ready. So without any hand touch, you can do your deployments from your Azure DevOps environment. Just do the check-in, trigger the builds, and the package will be generated and will be deployed. So by using this approach, actually this is remediating all the errors and the other things. That's the best approach.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, regarding that, they're asking about the host agents. They're saying that do these agents function the same way as a build server? Are there any other needs from the build server for these agents that aren't provided by the hosted agents? So they're talking about the limitations of the hosted agents that are provided, and also do they have the ability to use self-host agents? If they and also since their projects are private, do you know if they are within the limits of the parallel jobs to be listed on Azure hosted agents? So questions around that. Yeah.
When you are deploying from the lifecycle services, the build definition, the build pipeline, and the build agents automatically deploy by this templates actually. And you can then, after the first default deployment done, you can change, you can increase the agent counts, and if you are experienced on the Azure DevOps and this builds, you can juggle with it, and you can increase or decrease these numbers. But it's an experimental. From the best practice perspective, what Microsoft says is leave it as the default deployments.
Thank you. And we've got time for one final question by VK. He's asking, what is Microsoft's advice regarding the process of code retraction from the UAT in case one of the work items from the code package has failed? However, the rest of the work items have passed and need to be passed on to production.
Great question. In order to avoid this situation, you should implement a good branching strategy. If you have only one branching, then you should have the work items that will deploy to the production. But if you have the dev branch, if you have main branch, then you have the release branches. You can test it, and you can only move forwards the merge the past test items. But this depends on your branching strategy. The branching is so hot topic. Also, now I'm following in the Twitter. There are many approaches. I think you should find your own way. Microsoft can give a starter point to find the best practice on your branching. Start as least as branch count with the one, and if you need it, go to the other branch counts, increase the branch counts, because when the more branches are coming into play, it will be more complex.
I completely agree. In fact, this is same for Dynamics customer engagement as well.
Yes.
We have the same. The more it's all based on your development team. So there is not one
Silver bullets for that.
one style does not meet all your requirements. You have to look at your development teams, the size of development teams, and look at the amount of releases and how much multiple projects you're releasing at a given concurrent time. And that will add to the complexity of your branching mechanism. So yeah, it's something you're going to have to build yourself and try and minimize that. But yeah, thank you once again, Ahmed. It's always a pleasure for you to for your sessions. They're very, very highly insightful. So thank you once again for gracing the us today with your presence. So thanks, Ahmed. And I know
welcome.
that. Thank you. And please feel free to share your contact details if you need to in the chat. I know many people would be interested in keeping connected with you. Also, just a reminder for everyone that Ahmed, he is actually, Ahmed's really doing a lot of work in the area of retail. So